Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where roses had thorns, and Cupid's arrows often came with a heavy dowry. We're talking about love, courtship, and relationships in ancient Rome. And let me tell you, if you think modern dating is a minefield, you are not ready for the complexities of Roman romance. Forget swiping right. Here, your parents were probably swiping for you, and not based on your charming personality. Imagine trying to find a genuine connection when every interaction is scrutinized for its impact on your family's reputation and your social standing. This wasn't about butterflies in your stomach. It was about political alliances and property. Seriously, you'd probably be married off to someone twice your age before you even had your first crush. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling up to it, drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in the bustling heart of ancient Rome, a young man or woman coming of age in a society obsessed with order, tradition, and lineage. Your heart, perhaps, flutters for a charming face glimpsed in the forum, or a witty remark overheard at a dinner party. But this isn't a romantic comedy where chance encounters lead to grand declarations of love. In Rome, love, as you understand it today, was often secondary to reputation, family honor, and the strategic advancement of your social standing. For you, a young Roman, the idea of dating in the modern sense simply doesn't exist. There are no casual coffee meetups, no lengthy texting conversations, no spontaneous weekend trips to get to know someone better. Instead, your interactions with potential romantic partners, particularly for those of the upper classes, are carefully managed, observed, and almost always tied to the expectations of your family. Your entire life, from your education to your friendships, is geared towards maintaining and improving your family's dignitas, prestige, and auctoritas authority. A wrong romantic step, a scandalous liaison, or an ill-suited match could bring shame upon your entire household. If you are a young woman of a respectable family, your life is largely confined to the domestic sphere. Your education focuses on household management, weaving, and perhaps some basic literacy. Your opportunities to interact freely with young men outside of tightly controlled social gatherings, like family dinners or religious festivals, are incredibly limited. When you do encounter young men, it's under the watchful eyes of chaperones, older relatives, or even your enslaved attendants. Every glance, every murmured word, is noted. Your reputation, your pudicitia chastity, is your most valuable asset. And even the slightest hint of impropriety could ruin your chances of a good marriage. Imagine the suffocating pressure, where your every move is judged, and a misplaced giggle could be seen as an invitation for scandal. For a young man, while you have more freedom to move about the city, your romantic pursuits are equally constrained by social expectations. You might be training for a career in politics or the military, and your choice of a partner is often dictated by the need to secure alliances, wealth, or a prestigious family connection. While poets might write passionately of love and desire, the reality of Roman life pushes you towards practicality. Falling deeply in love with someone unsuitable could jeopardize your future, anger your powerful father, and even damage your standing among your peers. So, you learn to navigate a world where your heart's desires are often at odds with your family's ambitions. It's a bit like playing a high-stakes chess game, where the pieces are actual people, and your own happiness is just one of many variables. Public spaces, like the forum or the baths, are places where you might catch glimpses of potential matches. You'd see elegant women attended by their entourages, or young men engaged in lively discussions. But these are not spaces for intimate conversation or flirtation. They are stages where social roles are performed, and interactions are primarily formal. If you, as a young man, wished to pursue a woman, your approach would likely be through her male relatives, her father, her brother, or perhaps a powerful male guardian. Direct, unsolicited advances were generally frowned upon, considered aggressive, and could easily bring dishonor. Even at social gatherings, like dinner parties, where there might be more relaxed conversation and mingling, the environment is still highly structured. You sit in designated places. Conversations are often steered by the most senior guests, and any romantic interest would likely be conveyed through subtle signals or by intermediaries, rather than direct overtures. You might exchange a fleeting glance, a polite smile, but anything more overt would be scandalous. It's a game of polite charades, where unspoken rules dictate every interaction. One common historical fact is that marriage in ancient Rome, particularly among the elite, was primarily a pragmatic arrangement based on social status, wealth, and political advantage, rather than romantic love. The purpose of marriage was to produce legitimate children to continue the family line and to strengthen alliances. A fascinating, lesser-known detail is the practice of sponsalia, a formal engagement ceremony where a man would promise marriage to a woman, often involving an exchange of rings and gifts, even if the individuals were still children. This highlights how early and how formal these arrangements could be. Long before any personal feelings could develop, historians still debate the extent to which romantic love, if any, developed after marriage in these arranged unions, and how it impacted marital satisfaction in a society so focused on practicalities. It's a fascinating question about how human emotions adapted to such rigid social structures. The concept of dating for pleasure or self-discovery, exploring different personalities, or simply enjoying casual companionship is completely alien to this Roman world. Relationships are a means to an end marriage, procreation, and the continuation of your family's legacy. Any deviation from this path could lead to severe consequences, including disinheritance, social ostracism, or even legal repercussions. Depending on the severity of the transgression, you are born into a system, and that system dictates your romantic destiny. The pressure to conform is immense. Your entire upbringing has reinforced the importance of duty to family and state. Your individual desires, while perhaps felt deeply, are expected to be suppressed in favor of collective good. This isn't to say that Romans never fell in love, or that genuine affection couldn't develop within arranged marriages. But the initial impulse, the very framework for forming connections, was far removed from the modern ideal of choosing a partner based on personal attraction and shared interests. As the Roman day draws to a close, and the oil lamps begin to flicker in the stately homes, you retire to your quarters. The weight of expectation presses down on you. The romantic poets might sing of Cupid's arrows, but for you, the reality is a cold, calculated game of alliances and appearances. You are a player in a grand social drama, and your romantic destiny is less about your heart's desire and more about your family's next strategic move. Sleep, when it comes, might offer a brief escape into dreams where choice, perhaps, is a little less constrained. The soft glow of the oil lamps casts long, dancing shadows across the mosaic floors as the Roman night deepens. But even as darkness settles over the city, the invisible hand of tradition and expectation continues to guide your path. For you, a young Roman, the journey towards matrimony is not one of personal discovery, but rather a carefully orchestrated ballet, with your parents holding the reins, orchestrating unions for status, not sentiment. Imagine yourself as a young girl, perhaps barely into your teenage years, or even younger. You're learning to manage a household, to weave, to oversee domestic slaves. Meanwhile, in hushed conversations behind closed doors, your father is meticulously weighing potential matches for you. He's not considering your burgeoning artistic talents or your dreams of visiting distant lands. No. His focus is entirely on alliances which family offers the best political connection, the most substantial dowry, the highest social prestige. You are, in essence, a valuable pawn in a sophisticated game of power and influence. Your feelings, your opinions, are utterly irrelevant to this grand strategy. The idea of true love is a fantasy reserved for poets and myths, not for the pragmatic realities of Roman life. For a young man, your situation, while seemingly more autonomous, is also heavily influenced. Your father, the pater familias, holds immense legal authority, the patria potestas, over you, even into adulthood. He can, and often does, decide your spouse. Perhaps he sees a strategic marriage to the daughter of a powerful senator as a stepping stone for your political career. Or maybe he's seeking to consolidate family wealth by marrying you to an heiress. You might have your own affections, a clandestine glance shared with a young woman at the baths. But daring to voice such a preference against your father's wishes could lead to disinheritance, a damaged reputation, or even social ostracism. So, you learn to suppress your romantic inclinations and submit to the family's greater good. It's a very polite, very Roman form of emotional suppression, where dutiful obedience trumps personal happiness every time. The process often begins with formal betrothal ceremonies, sponsalia, which could happen when the future bride and groom were still children. Imagine being a young Roman girl, barely past childhood, perhaps playing with your dolls, when suddenly you are told you are engaged. You might meet your future husband, a man perhaps twice your age or more. For the first time at this ceremony, he might place a ring on your finger, a symbol of a promise made not between two individuals, but between two powerful families. This isn't a declaration of mutual affection. It's a binding contract, a formal agreement about property, inheritance, and the production of legitimate heirs. The very concept of getting to know your fiancé before marriage is a foreign one. You're essentially signing up for a lifelong partnership with a stranger, based solely on your parents' calculations. Negotiations for these unions are often lengthy and complex, involving discussions of dowry dose, which the bride's family provided to the groom to help support the new household, and arrangements for inheritance. These financial considerations are paramount, underscoring the contractual nature of Roman marriage. It's less about finding a soulmate and more about merging assets and strengthening social ties. Your value in the marriage market is often tied to the size of your dowry or the prestige of your family name, not your wit or your charm. One common historical fact is that Roman aristocratic marriages were primarily exogamous, meaning individuals typically married outside their immediate family group to forge new alliances, rather than endogamous. This was a deliberate strategy to expand political and social networks. A fascinating, lesser-known detail is that Roman law, particularly the Augustan marriage laws, actually offered incentives for Romans to marry and have children, including political advantages for men who had multiple children. This governmental push for procreation further emphasized the public and utilitarian nature of marriage, often overriding individual choice. Historians still debate the true impact of these laws on the personal happiness of Roman couples. Did they increase marital stability or merely compel unhappy unions for the sake of political gain? It's a poignant question, isn't it, about the balance between state interests and individual well-being. Even the act of choosing a wedding date is steeped in tradition and superstition, not personal preference. Certain months, like May and February, were considered inauspicious for marriage, while June was often favored. Religious rituals and omens played a significant role, ensuring the gods blessed the union. Your wedding day, when it finally arrives, is a grand public spectacle, a lavish display of your family's wealth and status. You, the bride and groom, are almost secondary to the procession, the feast, and the symbolic rituals. It's a performance for society, a reinforcement of the established order, rather than a celebration of personal love. Imagine the first night of your marriage. You are united with someone you barely know, perhaps even someone you've never had a private conversation with. The expectation is immediate procreation. The purpose of this union, from the family's perspective, is to produce legitimate children to continue the family line and inherit the family name. The pressure to conceive, especially a male heir, is immense, adding another layer of practical expectation to a relationship already devoid of initial romantic connection. This isn't to say that affection never developed within these arranged marriages. Over time, as you share a household, raise children, and navigate the complexities of Roman society, a deep sense of companionship, respect, and even a profound love could blossom. Many Roman letters and epitaphs speak of genuine affection and lasting partnerships. But the initial foundation is vastly different from what modern society considers a romantic start. You learn to love, or at least to coexist respectfully, with the person chosen for you, adapting your emotions to fit the social contract. It's a testament to human adaptability, isn't it? As a woman, your legal status within marriage could vary. You might marry cum manu, where you effectively passed from your father's authority to your husband's, losing all legal rights to your family's inheritance. Or you might marry sine manu, retaining your legal ties to your father's family and remaining under his potestas. The latter became more common over time, offering women slightly more autonomy, particularly regarding their dowry and inheritance. But even then, your agency in choosing a partner remained minimal. As the Roman night deepens, and the sounds of the city fade into a gentle murmur, you lie in your bed, perhaps beside a spouse you barely know. The choices made for you echo in the quiet stillness. There's no agonizing over a broken heart, no endless debates about compatibility. Instead, there's a quiet acceptance of your fate, a resignation to the path laid out by your ancestors, and perhaps a faint hope that over the years, a genuine connection might, against all odds, begin to grow within the confines of this pragmatic Roman union. The Roman sun climbs higher, beating down on the bustling streets, illuminating every detail of a city obsessed with appearances. And for you, navigating the intricate world of Roman romance means constantly grappling with Roman ideals of attractiveness and the relentless pursuit of social standing. Forget the casual comfort of modern dating. Here, you're always on, acutely aware that your physical presentation and perceived status are your primary currency in the marriage market. Imagine yourself as a young Roman woman. Your days are spent cultivating the very qualities deemed desirable: a modest demeanor, proficiency in weaving and household management, and a certain physical ideal. This ideal wasn't about being stick-thin. It was often about a certain plumpness, signifying fertility and good health, a sign that you could bear strong Roman children. You'd spend hours meticulously arranging your hair, often styled in elaborate braids or curls, using heated irons and pins. Your skin would be light, perhaps whitened with chalk or lead-based cosmetics, as tanned skin suggested outdoor labor, a mark of lower social standing. You might apply subtle makeup, perhaps kohl to define your eyes or a touch of rouge to your cheeks, but always with restraint, as excessive makeup could be seen as vulgar or the mark of a courtesan. The pressure to conform to these specific, often uncomfortable, beauty standards is immense, a constant performance for potential suitors and their families. For a Roman man, your attractiveness is less about delicate features and more about displaying strength, health, and intellectual prowess. You'd focus on maintaining a healthy physique, perhaps through exercise in the palestra gymnasium or rigorous military training. Your hair would be neatly trimmed, your face clean-shaven, a fashion that became prevalent during the Roman Empire. Differing from earlier beards, your attire, a pristine white toga for formal occasions, signifies your citizenship and social standing. But beyond the physical, your attractiveness is deeply intertwined with your reputation and eloquence. Can you speak well in public? Are you respected among your peers? Do you come from a good family? Your ability to secure political office or military glory is far more alluring than a chiseled jawline. It's a bit like being expected to be both a model and a highly successful CEO, all before your hair starts thinning. The pursuit of social standing permeates every interaction. When you attend a dinner party, it's not just about enjoying the food or company. It's an opportunity to observe and be observed. You're acutely aware of who is speaking to whom, who is seated where, and the subtle hierarchy at play. As a young woman, your family's status dictates who you're even allowed to interact with. As a young man, you're constantly evaluating potential matches based on their family's fama reputation and connections. A marriage alliance can elevate a family, or, if poorly chosen, drag it down. The stakes are incredibly high, far beyond personal affection. Consider the practicalities of a Roman dowry. The size and nature of the dowry were often a direct reflection of a woman's family's wealth and social position, making it a critical component of her attractiveness as a bride. For a man, marrying a woman with a substantial dowry could significantly improve his financial standing and social mobility. It's a transaction as much as a union, where the economic value of the partner is openly discussed and calculated. You learn to view potential spouses through a pragmatic lens, weighing their assets, both tangible and intangible, against your own family's needs and ambitions. One common historical fact is that Roman aristocratic women, despite their restricted public roles, often wielded significant indirect influence through their family connections and the marriages they forged. They were critical in securing alliances and maintaining social networks. A fascinating lesser-known detail is the Roman practice of using various hair dyes and elaborate wigs, sometimes made from the hair of German captives, to achieve fashionable looks. This shows a surprisingly advanced understanding of cosmetology and the lengths people would go to meet aesthetic ideals. Historians still debate the extent to which these beauty practices were driven by genuine personal preference versus societal pressure to conform to rigid appearance standards for the marriage market. It highlights the constant tension between individual desire and social expectation. Even conversations about physical flaws are open and direct. A Roman poet like Ovid, in his Art of Love, gives advice on how to deal with physical imperfections, suggesting that one should embrace them or cleverly disguise them. This stark honesty, by modern standards, might seem brutal. There's less emphasis on polite euphemism and more on direct observation of what is considered beautiful or acceptable. You learn to critically assess yourself and others against these very public and demanding criteria. The public sphere, the forum, the baths, the theaters are all stages for this unspoken competition. You see other young men displaying their physical prowess in the campus martius, or demonstrating their rhetorical skills in the forum. You observe other women, their elaborate hairstyles, their fine jewelry, their quiet demeanor. Every public appearance is an opportunity to impress, to signal your desirability, not just as an individual, but as a potential asset to another powerful family. It's exhausting, this constant need to perform, to present a perfect facade in a society that values image above all else. Your education, particularly for aristocratic youth, also plays a role in your attractiveness. For men, mastery of rhetoric, law, and philosophy signaled intellectual prowess and readiness for public life. For women, a refined education, perhaps in Greek or music, added to their desirability as cultured companions in the domestic sphere. This intellectual capital, like physical attributes and family wealth, becomes another item on the list of qualifications for a suitable partner. It's not enough to be good-looking, you must be smart, cultured, and well-connected. As the Roman day draws to a close, and you prepare for the brief respite of sleep, the images of perfect hairstyles, strong physiques, and calculating glances linger in your mind. The pressure to live up to an ideal, to constantly prove your worth in a highly judgmental society, is a heavy burden. You are constantly striving for an external validation that defines your potential for marriage, rather than cultivating a genuine connection based on mutual understanding. The pursuit of love, in this world, is inextricably tied to the relentless pursuit of perfection, both physical and social, and sometimes, you wonder if genuine affection can even survive such an exacting environment. The Roman sun, a relentless eye in the sky, shines down on a city where every action, every interaction, feels like a performance. For you, trying to navigate the choppy waters of romantic pursuit. Your every move is under constant scrutiny. Your romantic overtures are scrutinized in the public eye, leaving little room for genuine connection, making the already complicated dance of courtship feel less like a private waltz and more like a gladiatorial spectacle. Imagine you're a young man, smitten with a woman you've seen at a public festival or perhaps caught a glimpse of at a friend's house. You can't simply approach her and ask for her number. That's utterly unheard of and would be considered incredibly vulgar. Instead, your attempts to show interest are indirect, subtle, and incredibly public. You might try to catch her eye across a crowded atrium, hoping for a fleeting, almost imperceptible smile. You might send her a small, anonymous gift through a trusted slave, perhaps a poem or a flower, hoping she understands the unspoken message. But even these gestures are fraught with peril. If discovered by her male relatives, they could be seen as an insult, a scandalous advance that threatens her pudicitia, her chastity and modesty, and thus her family's honor. It's like trying to pass a secret note in a classroom where everyone, including the teacher, is constantly watching. For a young woman, the situation is even more restrictive. You are the object of pursuit, not the pursuer. Your role is to embody Roman virtues, modesty, chastity, and obedience. Any sign of being too forward, too flirtatious, or too eager could immediately brand you as immodest, potentially ruining your reputation and making you an undesirable match. So, you learn to cultivate an almost impenetrable facade of demureness. Your reactions to male attention are carefully calibrated, a downcast gaze, a slight blush, a quiet acknowledgement, but never anything overtly inviting. It's a delicate balance, trying to appear receptive enough to encourage a suitable suitor, while simultaneously maintaining an untouchable purity. This constant performance is exhausting, stifling any genuine personality or spontaneous emotion. Consider the venues for interaction. Public spaces like the forum, the baths, or theatrical performances are where you might encounter eligible individuals. But these are bustling, often chaotic environments, not conducive to intimate conversation. If you're a man, you might try to position yourself strategically to have a brief, polite exchange under the watchful eyes of others. If you're a woman, you are always accompanied by chaperones, a mother, an aunt, an older slave who ensure that no improper interaction takes place. Every movement, every conversation, every exchange of glances is observed, commented upon, and potentially judged. It's like having a dozen unofficial chaperones everywhere you go, silently critiquing your dating technique. Even private gatherings, like dinner parties sine, which might seem more relaxed, are still highly structured social events. Seating arrangements reflect social hierarchy, and conversations often revolve around politics, philosophy, or family news, not romantic gossip. While wine flows freely, and inhibitions might loosen slightly as the evening progresses, any overt romantic display would still be considered highly inappropriate. You might engage in witty banter, a display of intellectual compatibility, but never a direct flirtation. The pressure to conform to societal norms of decorum is paramount, even in moments of leisure. One common historical fact is that Roman society placed immense value on fama, reputation, and dignitas, prestige, particularly for aristocratic families, and any hint of scandal or impropriety could severely damage these. This made private conduct a very public concern. A fascinating, lesser-known detail is that Roman elegiac poets, like Propertius and Tibullus, often wrote verses lamenting the difficulties of love and courtship in Rome, revealing that even in ancient times, the struggle for genuine romantic connection was a relatable theme. Despite the societal constraints, historians still debate the extent to which these poetic laments reflected true widespread frustration with Roman dating norms or were simply literary conventions of the genre. It's a nice thought that perhaps, even then, people were rolling their eyes at how complicated it all was. The very concept of a date as a private, one-on-one meeting to get to know someone is alien. Your interactions are almost always within a group setting, often familial, and always with an awareness of the societal implications. There's no opportunity for raw, uninhibited conversation, for sharing vulnerabilities, or for the kind of emotional intimacy that forms the bedrock of modern relationships. You are performing a role, constantly. Consider the role of intermediaries for serious romantic interests leading towards marriage. Parents or male guardians would often employ matchmakers, pronubae, or trusted family friends to sound out potential partners. This formalizes the process even further, removing any semblance of spontaneous romantic pursuit. You, the prospective bride or groom, are often just a subject of discussion between two sets of elders, a commodity to be negotiated over. Your personal feelings are, at best, a minor consideration. The language of love itself, particularly among the elite, was often formal and indirect in public. While Latin poetry certainly explores passionate themes, public discourse about relationships was far more reserved. Displays of affection, even between married couples, were generally kept private. There was a strong emphasis on modesty and control of emotions, especially for women. You are expected to embody emotional restraint, even if your heart is pounding with either excitement or dread. As the Roman day fades and the last rays of sunlight stretch across the forum, you retire, the weight of public scrutiny heavy on your shoulders. The fleeting glances, the unspoken messages, the subtle gestures, these are the tools of your courtship. But beneath the surface, you yearn for something more genuine, a connection that doesn't require a constant performance. Sleep, when it comes, might bring dreams of a simpler world, where two people could simply meet, talk, and perhaps, just perhaps, fall in love without an entire empire watching. As the Roman night gives way to the bustling energy of another day, the city awakens, a vibrant canvas of life. Yet, beneath the surface of grand architecture and social ceremonies, the reality of Roman relationships often presented a less romantic picture. You find yourself navigating a world where the very structure of marriage, intended for stability, often contained the seeds of its own dissolution, making divorce and dysfunction a surprisingly common feature of Roman family life. Imagine you are a Roman citizen observing the marriages around you. You'd quickly realize that, unlike many modern cultures, divorce in ancient Rome was relatively easy to obtain, especially for men, and became increasingly common during the late Republic and early Empire. There was no lengthy legal process, no complex paperwork, and no concept of fault needing to be proven in court for a divorce to occur. If a husband wished to end a marriage sine manu, which became the prevalent form of marriage, where the wife remained legally tied to her own father's family, he simply had to declare his intention, often in the presence of witnesses, and send his wife back to her father's house. It was, in many ways, a profoundly unromantic ending to what was, for many, an unromantic beginning. This ease of dissolution must have cast a constant shadow over relationships, a pervasive sense of impermanence. For a woman, while initiating a divorce might have been slightly more challenging, it was still possible, particularly if her father was alive and willing to support her. The paterfamilias could demand his daughter's return, effectively dissolving the marriage. However, a woman seeking divorce often faced greater social scrutiny and potential damage to her reputation than a man, despite the legal ease. Imagine the anxiety this brought, always aware that your marital status could change with little warning, your future often dependent on the whims of your husband or father. It's a stark contrast to the modern ideal of "till death do us part." Consider the profound impact of child marriages and significant age gaps on marital stability. As we've explored, young girls were often betrothed, and even married, at incredibly young ages, sometimes as young as 12. Their husbands were often much older, established men in their 20s, 30s, or even beyond. This vast disparity in age and maturity often meant that true companionship or shared interests were difficult to cultivate, particularly in the early years of the marriage. A young bride, barely out of childhood, might find herself in a household dominated by an older, authoritative husband, expected to immediately fulfill her duties as a wife and mother without any personal agency. This inherent imbalance could create a deep-seated dysfunction from the very beginning. The primary purpose of marriage was often procreation, particularly the production of legitimate male heirs. If a couple failed to produce children, or specifically male children, the pressure to divorce and find a new, more fertile spouse could be immense, especially for men of high status. This reduced the marriage to a utilitarian function, rather than a personal bond. Imagine the strain on a relationship when its entire value hinges on biological output, rather than emotional connection. It's a cruel twist of fate for those who struggled with infertility, facing social shame on top of personal heartbreak. One common historical fact is that while Roman law made divorce relatively straightforward, a divorced woman typically retained her dowry, which would revert to her father or her own control if her father was deceased. This financial independence, though not complete freedom, offered Roman aristocratic women a degree of protection and often enabled them to remarry. A fascinating, lesser-known detail is that Roman literary sources, particularly satires and comedies, frequently depict the chaos and absurdities of frequent divorces and remarriages among the elite, suggesting it was a recognizable, if sometimes ridiculed, aspect of Roman society. Historians still debate whether these literary portrayals accurately reflect the typical Roman marriage experience or if they sensationalize the lives of the scandalous elite. It's a fun thought to imagine Roman comedians making jokes about terrible exes. Even back then, the influence of extramarital affairs also contributed to marital dysfunction. While Roman society officially condemned adultery, particularly on the part of wives whose infidelity was considered a severe transgression against family honor and the legitimacy of heirs. Extramarital relationships for husbands were often tacitly tolerated, especially with lower status women or courtesans. This double standard created inherent instability and resentment within marriages, undermining trust and fostering a climate of suspicion. You'd witness husbands openly engaging in affairs, while wives lived under constant threat of accusations of infidelity, even if unfounded. Consider the role of the paterfamilias even after marriage. He retained significant authority over his children, including his married daughters if they were married sine manu. This meant that a father could intervene in his daughter's marriage, sometimes even forcing a divorce, if he deemed it beneficial for his family's interests. This constant external influence, this perpetual parental oversight, could prevent a marriage from truly flourishing as an independent unit, always subject to external pressures. Political considerations were another huge source of marital instability, especially for the elite. Marriages were often formed for political alliances, and if those alliances shifted or collapsed, the marriage itself could be dissolved for strategic reasons, with little regard for the feelings of the spouses. You might see a prominent senator divorce his wife of many years simply to marry the daughter of a new political ally, a cold, calculated move that shattered lives for the sake of power. This reduced spouses to mere pawns in a larger political game, their personal happiness sacrificed for public ambition. As night falls over the Roman city, bringing a quiet respite from the day's social complexities, you might reflect on the fragility of marital bonds in this ancient world. The ease of divorce, the pragmatic foundations of marriage, the age disparities, and the constant external pressures all conspired to make genuine, lasting romantic connection a challenging, often elusive, endeavor. The ideal of a lifelong, loving partnership often clashed with the harsh realities of a society where utility and status frequently trumped sentiment. As you drift into sleep, the whispers of broken vows and new alliances echo softly, a testament to the turbulent currents beneath the surface of Roman domestic life. As the Roman morning light spills across the city, illuminating the grand facades and bustling streets, you are keenly aware that beneath the veneer of order and tradition, there exists a vibrant, perilous underworld of desire. For you, navigating the Roman dating scene, you might find yourself drawn to the magnetic, yet terrifying. Pull of forbidden desires and dangers. Encountering relationships that defy societal norms and legal boundaries. Imagine you are a young Roman, perhaps chafing under the constraints of an arranged marriage, or simply yearning for a connection untainted by familial obligation. You might find yourself drawn to the allure of a courtesan, a meretrix or lupa. These women, often highly educated, witty, and independent, operated outside the confines of respectable Roman marriage. They held lavish dinner parties, engaged in sophisticated conversation, and offered a freedom of expression that was utterly denied to respectable Roman wives. Spending time with a courtesan could offer intellectual stimulation and passionate encounters, a stark contrast to the often cold pragmatism of your arranged marriage. However, such relationships were strictly for pleasure, never for legitimate procreation, and could easily become a drain on your finances and reputation if indulged too freely. It's like finding a secret, exciting club, but knowing if you spend too much time there, your whole public life could unravel. Then there's the incredibly dangerous world of adultery. For a Roman wife, adultery was a grave offense, carrying severe legal penalties, especially after Emperor Augustus's Lex Julia de Adulterius Coercendis. This law could lead to the confiscation of her dowry, banishment, or even, in extreme cases, the right for her father or husband to kill her if caught in flagrante delicto in the act. Imagine the chilling fear of a woman living under such a threat, where a moment of weakness, a forbidden glance, could mean ruin or death. For a man, while adultery with a married woman was also legally punishable, the social stigma was far less severe. Reflecting Rome's inherent double standard, you might witness husbands casually engaging in affairs while their wives lived in perpetual fear of any perceived transgression. It's a cruel irony, isn't it? Consider the complexities of relationships with slaves. Roman society was built on the institution of slavery, and it was common, though legally unrecognized, for masters to have sexual relationships with their enslaved individuals. For a male master, this was often a matter of convenience and power, with little consequence for him, for the enslaved person. However, such a relationship was rarely consensual in any meaningful sense. It was often a form of sexual exploitation, where refusal could lead to brutal punishment. Children born from these unions were legally slaves, property of the master. Imagine the profound trauma and lack of agency involved, where your body is not your own, and any intimacy is shadowed by the threat of violence and the grim reality of your offspring's inevitable bondage. One common historical fact is that Roman law strictly regulated sexual conduct, particularly for women, aiming to control legitimate lineage and maintain social order, with severe penalties for transgression. This was especially true for aristocratic women. A fascinating, lesser-known detail is the phenomenon of amicus male friend and amica female friend, terms that could sometimes be euphemisms for lovers, especially in poetic and private contexts, allowing for a degree of veiled communication about illicit relationships. Historians still debate the true prevalence of homosexual relationships in ancient Rome, as they were not viewed with the same moral condemnation as in some later societies, though their social acceptance varied greatly depending on status and context. It's a complex area, showing that Roman views on sexuality were far from monolithic. Then there are the dangers of social ostracism and blackmail. Even if not legally punished, engaging in a forbidden relationship could severely damage your reputation, both personally and for your family. Whispers could spread through the city like wildfire, ruining marriage prospects, political careers, or social standing. This fear of public exposure often forced illicit lovers into extreme secrecy, living a double life filled with anxiety and paranoia. Imagine always looking over your shoulder, always fearing that a jealous rival or a disgruntled servant might expose your secret to the world. For some, the forbidden appeal lay in relationships that crossed social strata, particularly with individuals of lower status or those from the theatrical or gladiatorial professions. While passionate, such liaisons were generally considered scandalous for respectable Romans. A young aristocrat falling in love with an actor, a gladiator, or a freedwoman was fodder for gossip and disapproval, as these relationships offered no social or political advantage and could, in fact, bring shame. It's a bit like a modern-day celebrity dating someone completely outside their social circle, fascinating for the tabloids, but potentially ruinous for their career. Consider the role of brothels, lupanaria. These establishments, often located in the seedier parts of Roman cities, catered to a wide range of male desires. The women who worked there, often slaves or highly marginalized freedwomen, lived incredibly harsh and often short lives. For a Roman man, visiting a brothel was a private indulgence, generally tolerated by society as a way to fulfill sexual needs without infringing upon the sanctity of marriage or legitimate procreation. For the women, it was a brutal existence, a forced profession with little dignity or hope. As night deepens over Rome, the city's many hidden corners hold stories of forbidden passion and dangerous encounters. The stark contrast between the public facade of Roman morality and the private realities of desire creates a tense, often tragic, landscape for those seeking love outside the sanctioned norms. As you drift into sleep, the whispers of clandestine meetings, the fear of discovery, and the allure of passion found in the shadows of society echo softly, reminding you of the dangerous thrill of a love that dared to defy the rigid rules of ancient Rome. As the Roman morning light streaks across the grand villas and crowded insulae, you're faced with yet another inconvenient truth about dating and marriage in this ancient world, the stark realities of age gaps and power plays. Forget the notion of finding a partner who's your contemporary, or someone with whom you can build an equal partnership. In Rome, age disparities were common, and they inherently shaped the dynamics of every relationship, often favoring the more senior, and usually male, party. Imagine you are a young Roman girl, perhaps just 12 or 13 years old. This is the minimum legal age for marriage for females. You might find yourself betrothed, and soon married, to a man who is in his 20s, 30s, or even older. He is a fully formed adult, perhaps already established in his career, with significant life experience and absolute legal authority as the paterfamilias. You, on the other hand, are barely out of childhood, likely still playing with dolls just a few years prior. This vast age gap creates an immediate and profound power imbalance within the marriage. He is the master of the household. You are the young bride expected to obey, learn, and procreate. There's little room for developing a relationship based on mutual understanding or shared interests when one partner is essentially raising the other. For a young Roman man, while you might not marry someone significantly older, the expectation is that you will marry a much younger woman. This ensures that your bride is fertile and capable of bearing many children, particularly male heirs, which is the primary purpose of marriage. It also reinforces your dominant position within the household. You are expected to be the experienced, guiding hand, while she is the pliable, obedient partner. This dynamic, while socially accepted, often meant that male romantic aspirations were rarely challenged by their younger wives, creating a potentially stifling one-sided relationship. It's a bit like being handed a brand new, expensive piece of equipment that you're solely responsible for operating, with little input from the manual. Consider the practical implications of these age disparities. A young wife would often join her husband's household, leaving behind her own family and familiar surroundings. She would be expected to immediately manage a complex household, supervise slaves, and perform domestic duties far beyond her years and experience. Her husband, already accustomed to independent living and decision-making, would offer guidance, but often in the form of commands, not suggestions. This could lead to a lonely and challenging adjustment period for the young bride, further highlighting the power disparity. One common historical fact is that Roman aristocratic women typically married in their early to mid-teens, while men often married in their mid-20s to early 30s, creating a significant age gap in many Roman marriages. This practice was largely driven by the desire to maximize a woman's childbearing years and a man's ability to establish himself economically and politically before taking on family responsibilities. A fascinating, lesser-known detail is that Roman epitaphs' tombstone inscriptions sometimes commemorate marriages where the age difference was extreme, occasionally even showing wives significantly older than their husbands. Though this was far less common and usually occurred in specific circumstances, such as a wealthy widow remarrying a younger man of lower status. Historians still debate the emotional and psychological impact of these vast age differences on individual marital satisfaction. As Roman sources rarely offer intimate insights into the personal feelings of spouses, it's a compelling question, isn't it? To wonder how much genuine affection could bloom under such structured conditions. The societal emphasis on procreation further reinforced these age dynamics. A younger wife was seen as a more valuable asset for producing children, particularly male heirs, which was paramount for continuing the family line and maintaining its prestige. If a marriage failed to produce children, particularly sons, it was often the wife who bore the social blame, regardless of the husband's fertility, putting immense pressure on her. This often led to divorce and subsequent remarriage for both parties, further highlighting the utilitarian aspect of Roman unions. Even outside formal marriage, age played a role in power dynamics. In illicit relationships, particularly those involving powerful men and lower-status women or slaves, the age difference often amplified the existing power imbalance. An older, wealthy Roman man had vast resources and social standing, while a young woman or slave had little to no agency. Any relationship in such a context was inherently skewed, far from any concept of equality or mutual consent. The public perception of these age gaps was entirely normal. It was seen as a pragmatic and sensible arrangement, ensuring the continuation of families and the stability of society. There was no social disapproval for a significant age difference. In fact, it was often expected. This normalization of unequal partnerships meant that the inherent power disparities were rarely questioned, simply accepted as the natural order of things. As a young Roman, navigating this landscape meant understanding your place within these established age hierarchies. If you were a young woman, you accepted your role as a young bride, learning to manage a household and produce heirs. If you were a young man, you accepted your role as the older, authoritative figure, responsible for the household and its progeny. The idea of seeking an equal partner, someone who is your intellectual and emotional peer, was largely a foreign concept, overshadowed by the pragmatic realities of Roman society. As the Roman day draws to a close, and the sounds of the city begin to soften, you reflect on the deep-seated expectations that shaped your romantic destiny. The age gaps, the power plays, the unspoken rules that dictated who you could marry and why these were the invisible threads that wove the complex tapestry of Roman relationships. And as you drift into sleep, you might wonder if, amidst all the calculations of status and lineage, any genuine spark of mutual affection could truly ignite and thrive. The Roman morning, bright and unforgiving, reveals a city built on ancient traditions and strict social codes. For you, living in this complex society, every significant life choice, especially marriage, carries an immense weight. You quickly learn that your marital choices are not just about personal happiness. They carry the heavy burden of family reputation and political ambition, making the search for love less of a personal quest and more of a strategic maneuver on the grand Roman chessboard. Imagine you are a member of a prominent Roman family, perhaps a noble patrician house, or a rising plebeian family seeking to ascend the social ladder. Your marriage is rarely, if ever, a private affair. Instead, it is a tool, a crucial instrument for forging and strengthening political alliances. Your father, the paterfamilias, is likely orchestrating your union to connect with another powerful family, ensuring their support in the Senate, or consolidating power within a specific faction. A successful marriage could bring access to new client networks, military commands, or crucial votes in political assemblies. A failed marriage, or a scandalous match, could shatter these alliances, ruin your family's standing, and even lead to political downfall. You are, in essence, a living, breathing political chess piece, and your heart's desires are mere pawns in a much larger game. For a young woman, your value in this political landscape is immense. You are the conduit through which alliances are formed. Your pudicitia chastity and your family's impeccable reputation are paramount. For any blemish on either could render you useless in the marriage market. You are educated to be a capable household manager, a modest and virtuous wife, and a fertile bearer of legitimate heirs, qualities that enhance your family's negotiating power. Your role is to secure a beneficial match and then to embody the virtues that uphold the alliance. It's a daunting responsibility, knowing that your personal conduct directly impacts your entire family's future. For a young man, the pressure to make a politically advantageous marriage is equally intense. Your career in public life, whether in law, administration, or the military, depends heavily on the support of powerful patrons and allies. Marrying into a family that can provide these connections is often more important than any personal affection you might feel for your prospective bride. You are expected to prioritize family duty and political advancement over individual romantic inclination. To choose a spouse for love alone. If that spouse brought no significant political or social advantage, would be seen as foolish, irresponsible, and a betrayal of your family's aspirations. Consider the intricate web of clientele-patron-client relationships. A strategic marriage could expand your family's client network, bringing more followers, more influence, and more votes. The loyalty garnered through marriage was often more binding than any formal contract. When two powerful families were united by marriage, their clients often followed suit, creating vast networks of interconnected support that were essential for navigating the cutthroat world of Roman politics. Your wedding day is not just a celebration, it's a profound realignment of power, a public declaration of new allegiances. One common historical fact is that many prominent Roman political figures, such as Pompey the Great and Julius Caesar, engaged in multiple marriages and divorces throughout their careers for purely political reasons, often dissolving unions when alliances shifted. This highlights how personal relationships were often subservient to political expediency. A fascinating lesser-known detail is the practice of Roman affectio maritalis, which refers to the mutual intention of a husband and wife to be married. While seemingly simple, its lack was often cited as a basis for divorce, indicating that even in a pragmatic society, some form of ongoing mutual agreement or desire was ideally expected, even if not always present in practice. Historians still debate the true depth of affectio maritalis in many Roman marriages. Was it a genuine emotional bond, or merely a legal formality to legitimize the union and avoid penalties? It's a subtle glimpse into the internal tension within Roman marital expectations. The concept of inheritance also played a massive role. A good marriage could consolidate vast estates, preventing wealth from being diluted or passing into other families. For families looking to rebuild after losses or expand their influence, marrying an heiress was a highly coveted goal. This meant that the bride's wealth and potential inheritance were scrutinized as much as, if not more than, her personal qualities. You were marrying not just a person, but their entire patrimony. The pressure to produce legitimate heirs for the continuation of the family name and legacy was paramount. For powerful families, a male heir was essential to carry on the family's genes clan and to inherit its political traditions and offices. If a marriage failed to produce sons, or even children at all, the pressure for divorce and remarriage was immense, reflecting the utilitarian view of marriage as a means to an end for the family's survival and prosperity. This responsibility weighs heavily on both spouses, transforming intimacy into a reproductive duty, even beyond the highest echelons of society. Family reputation was crucial. For ordinary citizens, a good marriage could mean social advancement within their own community, better business connections, or simply a stable, respected household. A scandalous marriage or a divorce without good reason could bring shame and diminish standing, making it harder for children to find suitable partners in the future. The ripple effect of your choices extends far beyond your own lifetime. As the Roman day draws to a close, and you prepare for the quiet solitude of night. The weight of your family's history, its ambitions, and its future rests heavily on your shoulders. Your heart might yearn for a different path, for a choice based purely on affection, but the demands of lineage and political ambition often stifle such desires. You are a product of your time, a Roman, and your love life, or lack thereof, is inextricably intertwined with the destiny of your family. Sleep, when it comes, might bring dreams of a simpler world, where love truly conquered all, instead of being conquered by the relentless demands of reputation and power. As the Roman night gives way to the bustling, often chaotic, dawn, you quickly realize that for all the rigid rules surrounding marriage, Rome was a city brimming with pleasure outside matrimony. While official society upheld the sanctity of legal unions, a vibrant, often precarious, world of non-marital relationships flourished in the shadows, and sometimes, surprisingly, in plain sight, offering different forms of companionship, intimacy, and danger. Imagine you are a young Roman man, perhaps constrained by an arranged marriage or simply seeking pleasures not found within the confines of domesticity. You might frequent the brothels lupanaria that dotted the city, particularly in less reputable neighborhoods. These establishments catered to men from all social classes, offering the services of prostitutes, meretresses, who were often enslaved women, or sometimes freed women, compelled by poverty or circumstance. This was a purely transactional interaction, devoid of emotional connection, yet it provided a legal and socially accepted outlet for male sexual desire. The experience would be crude, quick, and efficient, a stark contrast to the decorum expected within a Roman marriage. You'd witness the harsh realities of these women's lives, a constant reminder of the exploitation at the fringes of society. Then there are the courtesans, meretresses of higher status, sometimes called amicae. These women were often highly educated, skilled in music, poetry, and witty conversation, making them desirable companions for elite Roman men. Unlike wives, courtesans could operate with a degree of independence, hosting lavish dinner parties, engaging in intellectual discourse, and often amassing considerable wealth and influence. They offered a freedom of expression and a level of intellectual companionship that many respectable Roman wives, confined to the domestic sphere, could not. A relationship with a courtesan was often prolonged and could even involve genuine affection. But it was never recognized as a legitimate marriage and could not produce legitimate heirs. It was a fascinating paradox. These women, though socially marginalized, often enjoyed more personal freedom than elite Roman wives. Consider the prevalence of concubinage. A Roman man, even if married, might maintain a concubina, typically a woman of lower social status, a freed woman, a foreigner, or even a slave if the relationship was tolerated by the main wife. This was a stable, long-term cohabitation that was socially accepted, though not legally recognized as a marriage. Children born from such unions were illegitimate and could not inherit their father's property or name. Concubinage offered companionship without the legal and social obligations of marriage, and it was particularly common for soldiers who were forbidden from marrying while on active duty, or for men who preferred a less formal arrangement. This created a parallel system of partnership, blurring the lines between what was considered morally acceptable and legally binding. One common historical fact is that Roman society was generally permissive regarding male extramarital sexual activity, particularly with women of lower status, while strictly condemning female adultery, which was seen as a threat to legitimate lineage. This double standard permeated all aspects of Roman relationships. A fascinating lesser-known detail is the existence of the pantomimus and mima, male and female performers, often actors or dancers, who were sometimes involved in relationships with elite Romans. These performers, despite their artistry, held a low social status and were considered infamous in fames, yet their allure often led to passionate, albeit scandalous, liaisons with members of the aristocracy. Historians still debate the true level of emotional intimacy in these unconventional relationships. Were they purely physical? Or could genuine affection transcend the rigid social barriers of the time? It's a testament to the enduring human desire for connection, even in the face of societal disapproval. Then there were relationships within the slave community itself. While not legally recognized, slaves often formed contubernia, stable partnerships that functioned as marriages, sometimes with the tacit approval of their masters. These unions offered companionship and emotional support within the brutal confines of slavery. And children born from these relationships, though legally slaves, provided a semblance of family. For those trapped in bondage, these illicit marriages were often the only true source of love and solace available. It's a powerful testament to the human spirit's need for connection, even under the most oppressive circumstances. Consider the role of homosexual relationships. While Roman society did not condemn same-sex relationships in the same way as later Western societies, their acceptance was nuanced and tied to social status. For a Roman man, it was generally acceptable to take a younger, lower-status male, such as a slave, a freedman, or a prostitute, as a passive partner. However, for a free-born Roman man to take on the passive role was often considered shameful, as it implied a loss of masculine control and dominance. For women, evidence of lesbian relationships is less abundant, but it is clear that various forms of same-sex attraction existed, though often hidden from public view. These relationships, while existing outside the marital framework, were part of the diverse tapestry of Roman sexuality. The public baths also served as a complex social space where various forms of non-marital interactions could occur. While ostensibly for hygiene and exercise, they were also places for socializing, gossiping, and discreetly arranging liaisons. The anonymity provided by the crowds, combined with the relaxed atmosphere, allowed for a certain freedom that was absent in more formal settings. As night falls over the Roman Empire, the city's myriad lights begin to twinkle, each representing a story, a household, a relationship, many of them existing outside the strictures of legal marriage. The complexity of these arrangements reveals a society far more fluid and nuanced than its official pronouncements might suggest. For you, navigating this world means understanding that while marriage might be for status and procreation, pleasure and companionship often sought and found their own precarious paths beyond the marital bed. As you drift into sleep, the whispers of hidden desires and the quiet hum of unconventional connections fill the air, a testament to the messy, vibrant reality of the Roman heart. The Roman dawn, as it has for countless centuries, stretches its golden fingers across the city, illuminating a landscape shaped by ambition, power, and the often unromantic realities of human connection. As your journey through the intricacies of Roman dating and marriage draws to a close, you find yourself reflecting on a complicated Roman heart. A heart that sought love and companionship within a system that frequently prioritized pragmatism over passion, and status over sentiment. You have witnessed how deeply intertwined love and life were with Roman societal structures. From the cradle, your future was often predetermined by parental ambitions. A strategic game of alliances where you were a valuable piece. The concept of dating as a journey of personal discovery was almost entirely absent, replaced by formal betrothals and carefully orchestrated introductions. The very idea of choosing your own partner for purely emotional reasons was a radical notion, often viewed as foolish or even dangerous to your family's dignitas. The beauty standards you observed, or perhaps painstakingly adhered to, were not merely about aesthetics, but about signaling health, fertility, and social standing. Your physical appearance, your demeanor, your very education all were curated to enhance your marketability in the marriage arena. Every public interaction was a performance. Every glance scrutinized, every word weighed, ensuring no hint of impropriety could tarnish your or your family's reputation. The pressure to maintain an impeccable public image was suffocating, leaving little room for genuine vulnerability or spontaneous affection. Consider the stark reality of divorce. While surprisingly easy to obtain, especially for men, it underscored the often utilitarian nature of Roman marriage. Unions formed for political gain could be dissolved for political expediency, shattering lives for the sake of power shifts. The profound age gaps, with young brides barely out of childhood married to much older men, further highlighted the power imbalances inherent in these relationships, making true companionship an uphill battle from the start. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? How much personal happiness was sacrificed at the altar of societal order? Yet, amidst these rigid structures, you also glimpse the raw, often dangerous, undercurrents of forbidden desire. The world of courtesans offered a different kind of companionship, intellectual and sensuous, unbound by marital constraints, though often existing in a precarious social limbo. The illicit thrill of adultery, for all its legal dangers for women, was a prevalent reality, a testament to human longing that defied societal norms. And the complex, often exploitative, relationships with slaves revealed the darkest aspects of power dynamics, where consent was often irrelevant. These hidden worlds painted a richer, messier picture of Roman sexuality, a stark contrast to the idealized image of Roman virtue. Even in these less conventional relationships, a subtle form of negotiation and adaptation was at play. The concubina, though not a legal wife, offered a stable, recognized partnership outside the formal marital system. And within the slave community, contubernia offered a fragile, yet vital, solace, demonstrating the enduring human need for family and connection even in the most dehumanizing circumstances. The Roman heart, it turns out, was capable of forming bonds in the most unlikely and challenging environments. One common historical fact is that Roman attitudes towards marriage and family evolved significantly over the centuries, with influences from Greek philosophy, changing economic conditions, and shifting social values, leading to a more individualized approach to relationships in later periods. This shows that even in such a traditional society, change was inevitable. A fascinating, lesser-known detail is the symbolic importance of the flammeum, a bright orange-yellow veil worn by the Roman bride during the wedding ceremony. This vibrant color was associated with fire and good omens, intended to ward off evil spirits and bring fertility. Historians still debate the extent to which the symbolic weight of such rituals truly influenced the personal feelings or marital success of Roman couples, or if they were primarily performative acts for the benefit of society. It's a wonderful image, though, isn't it? A splash of bright color in what was often a very pragmatic ceremony. As you reach the conclusion of this long gaze into Roman romance, you understand that while dating as you know it might have sucked by modern standards, the Roman heart, in its own complex and often brutal way, still found ways to connect, to love, and to endure. It was a love defined by duty, by pragmatism, by the overwhelming weight of family and state. But within those confines, genuine affection sometimes blossomed. Quiet moments of tenderness emerged, and the enduring human desire for companionship persisted, even against the odds.